Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Township of North Frontenac's council meeting, July the 20th, 2023. First thing we need to do is read a public notice and regarding the recording of this particular meeting. The chair and the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time the language of computers. Please be advised, North Frontenac council meetings are recorded. By attending a public meeting of council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of the recording. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. The township shall not be responsible should technical difficulties prevent the recording of any meeting or a portion thereof. Technical issues may include, but are not limited to, the availability of the internet connection, device failure or malfunction, unavailability of social media platforms, or power outages. It should be noted that no protection is afforded to council members, employees, or the public for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and or determined to be defamatory. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act 2001 and in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act, also known as MFIPA, not all information recorded for a public meeting or other public process are considered a public record. Members of council, staff, delegates, and attendees should be mindful of using names of individuals or entities when discussing matters in public. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior or comments. Okay, we got out of the way. We have the agenda.
Moved by Councilor Regent, seconded by Councilor Good. Be it resolved that council approves the agenda dated July 20th, 2023 as circulated.
Discussion in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof? Councilor Hooten.
Thank you. I, Roy Hudel, declare a pecuniary interest in item 9G on the July 20th, 2023 council agenda meeting. I'm making this declaration due to the fact that my daughter has the potential for direct financial benefit as she is currently the application manager for the software used by Circular Materials Ontario. I confirm that I will not vote on the matter. I will not take part on any discussion on any question in respect to the matter, and I will not attempt in any way, whether before, during, or after the meeting, to influence the voting on such a question.
So it's on to delegations. We have a group here from the Palmerston Highlands Owners Association who want to talk to us about the assumption of maintenance in this particular subdivision. I have Tom Housechild. Mind you, we have 10 minutes presentation, 10 minutes questions. Questions will be at the end. Everything will go through 8. And if you run over in the presentation, we'll just shorten the question period.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Thank you for taking the time to review our presentation and giving us time today to discuss this matter. My name is Tom Hoschild, and I own a 4-season home in Palmerston Highlands subdivision. I've been asked to speak on behalf of the Palmerston Highlands Owners Association, which represents the interests of 47 different property owners within the community. The community members of Palmerston Highlands subdivision are requesting that North Frontenac Township take over maintenance of the 5 roads and bridge which the township owns within our subdivision. The 5 roads have a combined length of 2.8 kilometers. In addition to those roads, there are 3 private lanes that are obviously privately owned. Our ask is not associated with those particular private roads. To be very clear, it's only dealing with 5 roads and the bridge that the township owns within the subdivision. The Palmerston Highlands subdivision is part of the overall Snow Road community. There are 47 individually owned lots, 28 used year-round, including 14 homes that are permanent residences. There are 9 blocks of land that are owned collectively by the various property owners together. These 9 blocks are recreational lands used for boat launching, swimming, picnicking, and so forth. There are further 2 blocks of land that are owned by the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. Canoe portage trails traverse over several properties. Advertised portage trails are also found on different lots and on the roads. All the township roads within the subdivision are publicly accessible and have no restrictions. Anyone can travel them. Roads are within a 66-foot wide road allowance, consistent with most other road allowances for other roads and highways. The subdivision ratepayers paid approximately $90,000 of property taxes in 2022. The estimated market value, today's market value of all properties combined is roughly $18.6 million. The community represented by the Palmerston Highlands Owners Association has maintained the roads over the years. That includes coordinating and paying for snow removal, road grading, investment to improve sight lines, and cleaning debris, fallen trees, repairing potholes, and so forth. We consider these roads to be very well maintained and on par with many of the other township roads that are maintained by the township year-round. The steel bridge on Carson Trail was installed in around 1983 when the subdivision agreement was agreed upon. The bridge, like the roads, is owned by the North Frontenac Township, though it's not included in the township's bridge inventory for regular bridge inspection and maintenance. A key point that I'd like you to keep remembering, please, is that the regulations on standards for bridges under the Public Transportation and Highway Improvement Act require that owners inspect and maintain bridges, including undertaking repairs to ensure the structural integrity and overall condition of bridges. And that's really for the traveling public. Safety is paramount. Last year, the Palmerston Highlands Owners Association took it upon itself to hire DW Wills to inspect and report on the Carson Trail Bridge. As you probably all know, DW Wills does a lot of work for the township as well, dealing with other bridges. They basically concluded that the bridge itself is in pretty good shape, although over the next 10 years, some improvements are needed. To be clear, the bridge does not need to be replaced in its entirety. There are other points that we would ask you to consider. I mentioned that the 5 subdivision roads owned by North Frontenac Township have a combined length of 2.8 kilometers. If the township took over these roads, that would equate to an increase of 0.75% of all roads maintained by the township. Having said and reliable roads is consistent with the township official plan. The general public, including our community members, expect subdivision roads and bridges to be safe. We expect emergency services to safely and effectively access township-owned roads. Imagine for a moment that an ambulance, a fire truck, a water pumping truck to support our firefighters aren't able to cross the bridge or not able to somehow go through the roads because of some sort of condition. In such an emergency situation, how would the township rationalize owning a road or bridge but not looking after it? Taking all other considerations, plus knowing that there are 28 homes that are used year-round, including 14 homes that are permanent residences, we believe that there's an inherent obligation on the township to maintain its subdivision roads. Another key point that I hope nobody misses is that when the subdivision was first established, the developer, Arnold Carson, agreed to be responsible to maintain the roads. That condition or covenant extended to subsequent property owners, myself included, as part of the land titles associated with property ownership within the subdivision. That said, the Land Titles Act states that where a condition, restriction, or covenant does not have a fixed expiry date, the condition, restriction, or covenant expires after 40 years. A fixed date for expiry, as you guess now, for the subdivision was never established 40 years ago. Palmerston Highlands property owners at this point in time no longer are bound by those obligations to maintain the township-owned roads. And lastly, we suggest that the township must consider its legal responsibility of ownership and liability risk should the roads and bridge deteriorate to an unsafe level, if not maintained. The residents, visitors, and future owners within the subdivision depend on regular maintenance and repairs to ensure the safety and integrity of the roads and bridge. The Auditor General of Ontario made the statement as part of an audit on the state of Ontario bridges, that the Ministry of Transportation is responsible for provincial bridges. Municipalities are responsible for bridges within their jurisdiction. This is a particular infographic that provides a fair bit of data. But the key takeaway is that there are 301 roads approximately within the township. There are 90 roads that are maintained by the township with a combined length of 376 kilometers. A total of 211 roads within the township receive no regular maintenance. 195 of those 211 are roads that are actually privately owned lanes. So it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't necessarily take care of them. We were able to determine in our research that there are approximately 16 roads that are owned but not maintained by the township, with 5 of the roads being, or 1/3 of all these roads within our subdivision. Obviously, Highway 41 is maintained by the Ministry of Transportation, and there are 2 boundary roads that Addington Highlands looks after. The other 8 roads outside of our subdivision have a combined length of 4.88 kilometers. And these roads are all lanes. In fact, the names of those roads have the word lanes inside them. Rightfully so, because they're either very short lanes or they are truly 1-car lane lanes. All to say that when you're just looking at the condition and size of these roads, they're significantly different than the roads within our subdivision. So this evening, we're requesting, with due respect, Mr. Mayor, councillors, that council agrees in principle that the township should take care of the Palmerston Highlands subdivision roads and the bridge that they own. Palmerston Highlands Owners Association will gladly collaborate with the township officials to share information and support the township in doing its own assessment. The Palmerston Highlands Owners Association will also seek to get a petition of signatures from community members consistent with the township's road policy associated with bylaw 123-13. Thank you for your time this evening, and certainly happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom. Councilors? Opinions, questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
Darwin, what's your opinion on the issue of bridge maintenance?
Both. I mean, these kind of owned by the township, but it just my opinion on it right now is that the maintenance and upkeep of those facilities was delegated to the subdivision owner and the residents of the subdivision, as I'll mention, with the subdivision agreement. So owned but not assumed by the township for maintenance purposes.
So the other comment is that without a fixed date on the length of time, Tom says that 40 years is a default, which is this year. Do you know anything about that legally?
No, I haven't dealt with that statute or issue. I'd suggest it'd be a question for our solicitor.
Thank you.
Councilor Fowler.
Yes, regarding the bridge. Who paid for the bridge in the first place and how did it become a township bridge?
The developer is part of the agreement between the township at that time and the developer. The developer, as part of the agreement, had the bridge installed. It was a used bridge, as the deck, the presentation has shown. So the bridge itself, it's roughly 40 years plus, but it was the developer that put it in.
Councilor Hermer.
I believe that was the old original Mississippi Bridge, was it not?
I've heard different rumors and I can't confirm. I've also heard that it came out of the Toronto area.
That bridge is probably a whole lot more than 40 years old because it was moved there. It was moved off a site where it had been in use prior to this.
Previously, yeah.
I was on that bridge yesterday. I stopped and took a look at it and maybe a deck someday, but you know. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor.
Tom, I can't find it now. Could you remind us why you don't believe this would be a precedent for the township?
First of all, the vast majority of the roads within the township are privately owned roads. They're on private lands, private property. They are not roads that the township owns. There are only a total of 16 roads altogether that the township owns and does not maintain. 5 of those roads are within our subdivision. The Ministry of Transportation looks after highway. Sorry, 50, which highway?
41.
41, thank you. And Addington Highlands looks after Addington Highlands Road 1 and road number 2 and road number 3. So you've got 8 other roads. Now, I've personally traveled on the vast majority of those, the last 4.88 kilometers stretch. So that 4.88 kilometers, that's comprised of those 8 other roads that I don't know much about other than having driven them. They are truly 1-lane roads. When I drove down one of these roads, my side mirrors were about to be clipped off by trees that are right next to it. I was actually afraid because as I continued to drive down one of them, there was grass running between the tire tracks. It was those folks that are using those lands. I can't imagine that they would ever come to you and say, please take it over because you took over the roads in the Palmerston Highlands Owners Association roads. The reason I say that, they're totally different. The roads, our roads, you can clearly pass by. You can put 2 cars on our roads. There was another one. There was another road that I traveled on, and I came up to another vehicle. That other vehicle actually had to back up roughly 200 meters in order for the 2 of us to drive by. That type of experience you will never have in the Palmerston Highlands subdivision.
It's just that my recollection, we've assumed maintenance of two other roads. This is a third. The two I think of are Sunday Lake, which is probably 3 kilometers roughly. And the other one is, of course, Norcan Lake, which we now, so here's another request. So my thought is, which one is next? Is there another subdivision?
If I may answer that, I can tell you Sunday Lake. From my recollection, and I believe this was around 2016, 2017, the council at the time approved Sunday Lake. Sunday Lake is a private road. It is not owned by the township, which sets it apart from these roads. From what I understand, council at the time, probably yourselves as well, the agreement was that Sunday Lake has a boat launch, and you advertise that boat launch, and that's what sets that one apart.
So first, okay, Counselor Hoodle, then Counselor Fowler.
So I'm a little confused. Maybe you can help me understand this. It's 40 years ago approximately, the subdivision was built,
Yes.
and you're maintaining that that subdivision plan said in 40 years, the township is going to take it over.
No,
No,
So in the Land Titles Act, and I'll tell you, I've got many, many years of regulatory experience. I'm not a lawyer. I also am a realtor, so I understand a lot of the legislation. I can read legislation regulations pretty well, having been in public affairs and regulatory affairs. The Land Titles Act spells out that unless the agreement where there is a covenant, unless the agreement for the covenant has a fixed expiry date, if there's no fixed expiry date, then after 40 years, the covenantee is no longer bound by those covenants. That's what the Land Titles Act says.
thank you. Counselor Fowler.
It's just, comment, you have a turnaround at the end of the road for emergency vehicles and things like that.
There is a turnaround at the end of Palmerston Peaks Drive where emergency vehicles can turn around. It's actually adjacent to my own property, so I know that turnaround very well. Palmerston Crescent also has a turnaround. So emergency vehicles can get down there and they can turn around. As a matter of fact, at one point, there were very large trucks that were doing snow clearing and they needed that turnaround as well. So it's quite useful to have them.
Counselor Good.
Yeah, you're talking about Lands Covenants Act. I'm not sure when that would have taken into effect. Maybe you can tell me that, but I think we're gonna have to have a legal device on this, and I think we should be not bothered talking about this anymore in this meeting.
You're one comment ahead, Ike.
Okay,
Typically, we don't play around with private roads and so on, but you do have an agreement, you do have, you're making a point. We're gonna need to run this by a legal firm and get legal advice. Even if, the bridge especially scares me, not now, even though if we have a responsibility, and I don't know that we do, it's gonna take a lawyer to render an opinion, but even if we've handed this over, do we have a responsibility behind the scenes? I'm not sure we can enact our rights and responsibilities away. Wayne, Counselor Good.
I think on any other ones that were looked at before, that it's up to the subdivision owners to bring the road and per se bridge up to standards. And not say that we're gonna have to replace that bridge in 10 years' time, because that's likely a $2 million bridge or more.
Thank you. It's at least 80 feet long, so anyway. So what's our next step here? I think we need to have a motion to solicit a legal opinion on this. Carol, is that kind of what you're waiting? Deputy Mayor?
Before we leave this topic now, do we want to have any idea what forgetting the bridge, what annual maintenance costs might be if we assumed maintenance of these roads? Do we have any kind of a ballpark?
I don't have a ballpark number. But we could review it like we did for Norcan Lake Lane and come up with an estimate on it.
What one calculation would be if roads consume half of our budget, that's about 3 million. And if this is 0.6% or 0.7%, that's about 200,000 a year.
Oh, no. 3 million.
3
And 1% of 3 million is 30,000.
30,000. That's only 20,000. I'm up by a factor of 10.
Yeah. Who does your personal books? So can we add that to the motion? I'd be thinking more like 10, 12. I don't know.
If I use what we used recently on our call road, we're probably looking more like 30,000-40,000. We took our 5-year gravel our granular A program and prorated that annually as well and added it in. So we're probably looking 30,000-40,000.
Well, we have the experts here. What does the association roughly pay in a year for maintenance and snow clearing? Roughly.
15 to 20. Yeah.
Carolyn Charter.
Thank you, Carolyn. Welcome.
In the last 3 to 5 years, it's ranged from 8 to 18. Depends on the winter. I think 2 years ago, winter was very nice. I would say an average of 12. 15.
Darwin?
Just remind council, if we adopt it, and we're doing the maintenance, we have to comply with the minimum maintenance standards. So it isn't necessarily the standard that the association is currently using, but that's what would govern our maintenance operations.
Okay. All right. Cheryl?
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the presentation from Tom Housechild, Palmerston Highlands Owners Association, requesting the township assume maintenance of Palmerston Heights subdivision, and thanks him for his time spent today. The council instructs the public works manager to review the request, including obtaining a legal opinion, and provide a report back to council with estimated cost for maintenance.
Read that last paragraph again. please.
Yep.
Just what you added.
And that council instructs the public works manager to review the request, including obtaining a legal opinion, and provide a report back to council with estimated cost for maintenance.
Think so?
I think so.
Okay. Any further comments? In favor? Carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. It's that 600 bridge. And it's $2 or $3 million. Okay. So we have another presentation, Amy Fraser from the Mazenal Lake Property Owners Association. Talk to us about Eurasia Milfoil. As the previous presentation, we have a total of 20 minutes, typically 10 and 10, plus or minus a bit. We'll let you decide how the time goes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to council for allowing me to come here and speak tonight. I do really appreciate this is a very important topic. So I'm going to jump right into it, respecting time. There we go. So we do have a land statement that I will read here. So the MPOA are working towards understanding the history of Canada and Mazenal as a deeply sacred place. We understand that it's a complex and long history, and we are working towards building appropriate relationships so that we can honor Indigenous peoples and the significance of Lake Mazenal in an appropriate way. So just some key facts, which is very important, that Mazenal Lake is a National Historic Site of Canada. Specifically towards its Indigenous culture. It was designated as such in 1982 for being the largest Indigenous pictograph site on the Southern Canadian Shield and and the only major pictograph site in southern Ontario. So there's 260 pictographs along the base of the cliff. So if you're wondering about our land statement, land acknowledgement, that is why we feel it's so important. It is also a strong economic engine for the North Frontenac area, specifically towards Cloyne. If we also take into account not only the cottage owners, but also the fact that we do have a provincial park. There's additional rental properties. There's approximately 500,000 visitors per year, resulting in significant economic spin-off for the North Frontenac and beyond. Upwards of some local businesses stating that there's approximately 70% of their business through the summer months, the spring through fall timeframe, comes from the visitors to the area. Mazenod is also the headwaters for the Mississippi River watershed. So it's draining throughout the 200-kilometer long Mississippi River. So it has a lot of significance in terms of the overall health of the watershed. So the watershed encompasses approximately 250-ish lakes. Obviously, Mazenod doesn't drain into all of them, but it is still the headwaters and does drain into several large lakes and all the way down the Mississippi through to the Ottawa River. So maintaining the health is critical. So it is a flagship lake. It's deemed a flagship lake by the Blue Lakes program. So we have registered with a program that is all about maintaining the health of the lake and making sure that we have a designation. So it is the 7th deepest lake in Ontario with a maximum depth of 476 feet. And it is also has several aquatic species of interest and a various scientific communities. Sorry, pardon me. So it is also home to Bon Echo Park, and much of it is also there is a significant amount of crown land around the area. So it's approximately 3.7 miles north of Cloyne within the township boundaries, both of North Frontenac and Addington Highlands. Whoops. So here's just a really quick map where you can see, so the green area there, the large lake at the base is Mazenod. And then if you look at the whole dark blue space that goes throughout, following all the way down through, so I'm gonna not be able to read those lakes, but Kishkish, I think it's Crotch, Mississippi Lake, all the way down through that watershed, that is where all of that water is coming through and flowing from Mazenod. So the overall lake health is absolutely critical to the entire flow of water. You can also see here a larger zoomed in photo, and the green space around Mazenod is the provincial park. You'll notice that Mazenod is separated into 2 different basins. They are attached through the narrows right at the middle of the park, sort of where that brownish icon is there. So is the North Lake is where the deeper part of the lake. It is shallower in the South Basin. If we want to look at what our issue statement is for Eurasian milfoil. So Eurasian milfoil is an invasive weed species, and it can impact the overall health of a lake and can have dramatic impact to it. So it can reduce property values up to 20%. So that considering the number of properties, even within the North Frontenac region, that can have a substantial impact to your budget, because we pay taxes based on how much our properties are worth. It increases mosquito and algae blooms. It spreads at a rate of approximately 13-fold over an 8-year span. That actually comes out of another lake here in Ontario where they are tracking the spread of this invasive weed species. If we want to put things into perspective about the virility of it and how invasive and terrible it can be, and how the amount of impact that it can have in terms of spreading, is that you can take we had someone take a small sample of a Eurasian milfoil, put it in a Ziploc bag 2 days before our AGM 2 weeks ago. They walked in 2 days later, that thing was growing roots. It had spent 2 days in a Ziploc bag. So these little bits can break off and they spread throughout the lake. It is also on boats. Boat traffic, human traffic is probably one of the biggest ways that it gets spread around, and people not cleaning their boats. So it's not just our lake, it's other lakes, and it's the impact of our lake to the other lakes because of people are coming in and boating. It can cause loss of biodiversity and ecosystem damage. So it's dense vegetation that gets choked out and it chokes out native species. It can get so thick that fish can't even swim through it. So it reduces the dissolved oxygen. It also reduces the recreational opportunities because you cannot drive through this. I think a good example is some of the lakes down in the Kawarthas. So there's one lake, Clear Lake, where they were actually having to dredge paths so that boats could drive through it. Now it's obviously a much different lake than what Lake Mazenot is, but it has major impacts to the enjoyment even of the lake. There's also obviously costs for managing it that are substantial. So here is, we took some drone video. We were lucky enough to have someone on our lake that has drone video. You'll see this is about, I think it's about a quarter of the patch at the South Lake. So if you think about where that Narrows was in the South Basin, that's 125 meters or 128 meter long stretch. That is Eurasian milfoil. And that's not the whole patch. And that's just one section of the lake. We have found it throughout the lake in different places. We are geotagging and drone videoing to actually get the full space. If you want to see how terrible it can get, there's a video or there's a photo of the density of the weed last fall. So when it's at its peak. Good luck driving your boat through that or swimming through that. So in terms of what our asks here, we are working right now. So some initial and ongoing GIS mapping, we need to actually understand the scope of the issue. So we're using, because we need to know what the problem is. We will potentially be coming to you and looking for support for applying for grants and permits and communicating with the lake users. There's funding. We're going to need help with funding. Obviously, it can be cost anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 a year to maintain, to treat this, depending on what the recommendation is for the thing. Obviously, we're not coming to you asking for that money, but there are opportunities for municipal grants. We are not, as a lake association, eligible to apply for those grants. You are. We will be working with you and Addington Highlands, because we do cross both townships, to apply for grants to help us manage this very critical issue within our lake. The other thing is that Eurasian milfoil feeds on phosphorus, high phosphorus levels. One of the biggest issues is that the high phosphorus levels in our lake, we have seen a trend we've seen an upward trend in phosphorus levels in our lake. One of the biggest contributing factors is septics. And currently we've got voluntary septic inspection, but there is no mandatory septic inspection. On voluntary septic inspections, we're seeing about a 2% failure rate. If you go to mandatory, those are people that care about their septic systems. You go to mandatory, you're probably looking at 10,000, considering that there are 374 properties on the lake, not all in North Frontenac, but still, we're looking at a high level, potentially, of phosphorus coming out of these septic beds that will potentially then help at least slow the growth of the Eurasian milfoil. I think that's about it. Hopefully I was not too long.
Thank you for that. Does anybody have any comments? Deputy Mayor.
We first learned about Eurasian milfoil at Malcolm Lake.
Yeah.
And you're aware of what they've done. They've tried to put down mats.
Yes.
I think the mats rot away on their own after a few years, and that was it. Didn't really do much.
They're not the most effective way for dealing with the Eurasian milfoil.
No, so I guess my question is, I mean, first of all, the invasion of this plant at Mazenot seems like, I don't think this was a big problem 5 years ago, was it?
It was first reported in 2019.
That's very recent.
It is quite recent, and you can see the pervasiveness of the issue now within the lake.
So
And
how
that's
are we going to control this at this point? What will $500,000 a year do?
fantastic. So that's actually a really great question. So this year, we don't even know what the budget will be to maintain it. What the measures that we can take this year, we have installed markers. We've started to install markers on the lake to prevent boat traffic and water traffic through the area, because if you can prevent the traffic through, you're stopping at least the breaking off of those pieces. and then traveling to other parts of the lakes. There's that. In the smaller patches, you're able to mitigate by doing hand pulling. So I know that we identified 3 different spots within our bay, 2 of which are primed to go in there, and you have to be pulling out by the roots. One other one we can't. So right now, all we can do is try and slow the boat traffic to slow the spread of it by getting the markers out there. We have to quantify. We don't even know the scope of the issue on our lake, and that's a big thing. We're working with various organizations. So the Blue Lakes, which is Watersheds Canada, we're working with the park. We're engaged with the park. We're engaged with the Mississippi Conservation Authority, all trying to figure out how can we map out the extent of the issue on our lake.
And the other thing is and this probably isn't gonna happen, if we brought in mandatory septic testing on that lake or just on the south basin of
Yeah.
that lake, it would probably take 5 or 6 years or more before phosphorus levels were actually affected by that, I would think. Have you clearly identified high phosphorus levels as the reason that the stuff is growing so prolifically?
Right, so we can't, it's hard to tie, it's a contributing factor, right? There's many different things that will be a contributing factor. High phosphorus levels, as the weed growth dies off every year, it's also putting high phosphorus levels. We are a lake trout lake. We need to keep that phosphorus level low. I think that we have to look at doing nothing is not an option. So we need to do whatever we can, even if it takes 5 to 6 years. Hey, it's still taking 5 to get those phosphorus levels down. It doesn't matter. We're still making a difference. We have to make a difference. Doing nothing is not an option. And it's spreading. We know it's in Malcolm Lake, and I know that they put those mats down, and it's limited success. There are other options that are coming to the market. Farlane Lake over near Collingwood is looking at different options as well. They're the ones that had the 13-fold growth over 8 years in their space.
Counselor Good.
Yeah, has anybody ever looked at, because of the phosphorus levels, that doesn't only come from septic systems, it also comes from people with shampoo in their hairs, like the park puts through how many people through there every year?
Yeah.
And they're all swimming in that lake.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another thing. And I think there was a lake up by Peterborough that had high milfoil levels, and they tried different things to control it. And nothing's worked. I think with your motors, stopping your motors from running through, it's not gonna let it chop off. But Big Gull Lake has got it too on the eastern end of it. And that flows into, that's the headwaters of that section there, that flows into Crotch Lake. So I can see, have you talked to Brenda Martin with the
Malcolm Lake. or
Malcolm Lake Association, because they're working on this all the time. There's lots of people working on it.
Yeah, so I haven't spoken to her directly. What we have been in communication with the researcher out of Carleton University who is heading up that, and I have read the entire report. There are new measures that are coming on the market. So there is I'm not saying we're going to do it by any stretch of the imagination, but it's an herbicide that you can put in the lake. I'm not saying we're going to do that. And obviously we're managing with we're dealing with the Mississippi Conservation Authority on this as well. But I think it's to say that although these previous measures haven't worked, they are trying to come up with new solutions.
Okay, Counselor Fowler, then Counselor Udall,
And
then Counselor Regent.
But just a quick question regarding the Bonnecco Park officials. Are they helping out in any way?
yes, so they have already started circulating pamphlets and information sheets to the park goers. They are installing signs as well for the clean and dry your boat. So cleaning off your boats before going in, because that's really how majority of invasive species, right? It's and they are helping us with marking in the drone videos. I don't know when the meeting is happening, but they're engaged with, even when we're trying to map this out, they're cost sharing on the markers. So anything that happens within the park boundaries is being cost shared by the park.
Counselor Udall.
Thank you, Amy, for your presentation. And I take this very serious, not only as a counselor, but I'm also president of the Buckshot Lake Association. And luckily, we don't have this in our lake
Yet.
But
That
so
you've
we're
found.
always, yeah. So the question I'm gonna ask, have you approached a university? You know, I'm sure there's doctorate students that
Yeah.
would just love to do research on this,
Yeah,
You
so we
have-
have some people, I believe she's out of Trent.
right?
So I think that there's someone out of Trent that's coming to, I don't know for sure though, but yes, we
Right.
have, we've engaged with them
Okay.
through FOCA. So
Right.
we've been talking to FOCA.
And,
Yeah.
and as far as mandatory septic inspection is, I totally agree with you.
Councillor Regent?
So I had a chance to chat with Amy and Vern and Hillary briefly about this before council, and I think one of the things that I got out of it, which is not the most important thing, but probably in the top three at least, would be there absolutely something must be done. As you said, doing nothing is not an option. There are probably lakes that have this that we don't even know about. I'm pretty sure it's in my lake, not quite to that extent, but I think what comes to mind immediately after listening to your presentation is I think we have an opportunity here to provide you with some kind of assistance. And we chatted a little bit about the different ways that this can be attacked, for lack of a better word, and they're all expensive and they're all complicated. But I think one of the things that you were looking for today, if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is a positive reinforcement from the township that we hear you and we're prepared to assist you in some way.
After listening to Stephanie, does anybody have any comments about that particular conclusion she's just tabled? Well, hang on, Councillor Herman, then you.
Well, I think financially it's beyond the capability of any small municipality like ours to even consider financially doing much. We need the involvement of the provincial government in this because it's certainly not just in this area. It's throughout the province. So
Probably the feds, they own the waterway. Councillor Deputy Mayor?
I wonder if your group could possibly identify grant opportunities and bring them to the attention of our staff so that they don't have to do that work of
Yeah.
finding the grants.
I believe if we don't have it in the presentation, I believe that we have identified some municipal grants that are possible. We have already started the process for applying for other grants. Farlane Lake over near Collingwood was successful in an Ontario Trillium grant, so we have identified grants. I believe we've already started the application process for one. We were lucky at our AGM to get 5 new board members, one of whom is very dedicated to helping us with the grant writing. I also have extensive experience, but any municipal grants that we do have the opportunity, I'm more than happy to send your way. And I think that we're not the only lake in your area. We're probably the biggest, but yes.
Sure.
Just to be clear, I'm not promising any financial assistance. I think what I was getting at, and maybe I need to be a little more clear, is that I think what you're looking for is some assistance in some regard from the township and the people sitting here, because there are things that we may have access to that you don't. And I think probably a relationship between Mazenod Lake, which is the headwater for that area, and the township and this council is a good first step.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So even simply like we're gonna have soon enough new clean dry signs, like clean your boat signs, that will need to go up, and there's a public boat launch, say at Toppings, and we'll need to put that sign up. So coming to you now, I've come a few times, I've emailed previously about things that need to be done at Toppings Landing. You know what, your team has always been, I've always found, and I guess it would probably be your team is always quite, because you're public work, so it would be your team that's always quick to respond and able and very helpful. But yeah, having that general agreement that you're in support of our efforts, and I'm more than happy to send grants that you're eligible for that we are not eligible for tackling this. But yeah, in principle, having agreement from you that you're willing to help us in whatever capacity you're able to. Obviously, financially, you're not able to, it's an insane amount of money.
Okay, councillors. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We were aware of the problem. You have made us more aware. And we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Motion. Nope.
Oh, sorry, yes, go
Do I
ahead.
have a motion? Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives a presentation from Amy Fraser, president of the Lake Massinac Property Owners Association regarding Eurasian milfoil invasive species issue, and thanks her for her time spent today.
In favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Adoption of minutes.
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council adopts the minutes as circulated of a public meeting of council held June 29th, 2023, a regular meeting of council held June 29th, 2023, and a meeting of the Personnel and Audit Committee held July 11th, 2023.
Discussion? In favor? Carried. No business arising out of the minutes, communications section A.
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Good. Be it resolved, the council receives for information section A items of the clerk's administrative report entitled Communications of Interest.
Any comments? In favor? Carried.
Moved by, sorry.
Communications section B. Proclamation.
Moved by Counselor Regent, seconded by Counselor Good. Whereas the Township of North Frontenac recognizes the importance of agriculture in the region, and whereas the Township of North Frontenac believes a strong agricultural economy is essential for enduring communities for the health of our residents and to establish a strong community in support of food security for our citizens, as well as our businesses and organizations. And whereas the Township of North Frontenac has a vision of a strong agricultural community that is rooted in the character of Frontenac County and its residents, welcoming, natural, healthy, clean, tranquil, entrepreneurial, and rural by choice and conviction. And whereas the Township of North Frontenac is committed to supporting agriculture to grow businesses, attract more visitors, and expand the tax base. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of North Frontenac hereby declares September 1st to October 15th, 2023 as Open Farm Days in Frontenac County, and reminds individuals of the importance of this 6-week celebration which supports local agriculture and food businesses in our community. And that the Township of North Frontenac encourages all residents to support local farms and food businesses by participating in this series of events. The council instructs the manager of community development to share the details with the public on the upcoming events.
Discussion? In favor? Carried. So item B2, request to Deputy Mayor Inglis's request to attend the AMO Lost Energy Symposium.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information an email dated July 7th, 2023 from Corey Klatt, CAO, advising Deputy Mayor Inglis would like to attend the AMO LAS Energy Conference held in Toronto from November 2nd to 3rd, 2023. And that per the conference policy, the Deputy Mayor and council members are permitted to attend one conference per year, and the mayor can attend 2 conferences. The 2023 budget was approved for 6 conferences and not 8, as previously all council members were not attending conferences. To date, 4 council members have attended a conference in 2023. The council approves Deputy Mayor Inglis' request to attend a second conference, being the AMO LAS Energy Conference, November 2nd to 3rd, 2023.
Comments? Deputy Mayor.
I didn't intend to claim it per diem. I don't know what it would be without that. I think it'd be less than 1,600.
Would be. Counselor Good.
Yes, I'm not attending any conferences, so I don't see a reason why not. John can't do it.
Anybody else? Counselor Fowler.
I think we've had agreement with the council that each of us will get a chance to attend one a year. And if he attend, he's already attended Roma. I think we'll make the second precedent here. Precedent.
Anybody else? Counselor Good.
Yes, I don't believe it's setting precedents at all, because we've done this before in the past for other councilors, deputies, mayors, and mayors.
Counselor Hood.
Well, the only concern I have if somebody else, like, I know Councilor Regent, I don't know if she's gone to a conference yet, but if we're gonna do this, then we should change our bylaws saying that it's X amount per council, not 1 per. Maybe that would solve the problem.
Just
Just to clarify, are the conferences within a calendar year? So it's
Yes.
January to December. So I have a chance to go next year.
You still go this year.
I have no plans to go this year.
You should go to OEMC.
So, so I have a number of issues with this. First of all, I think it does set a precedent, but I wasn't aware that we'd done this in the past, so I'll let that go. But just that, you know, it's one council or one conference. Why are we doing this again? Okay, energy conferences come and go. I don't know how good this one is. I assume you researched it. It's pretty decent. It's $1,500, $2,000. Do we have to spend it? Is that value there? Okay, just because it's in the budget, I guess you can say that with any conference. My biggest issue here is process. We as a township paid for this conference with the idea that if we didn't approve it as a council, then deputy mayor would reimburse us. But the way I read this is the bureaucracy or the administration said that we think this is a good idea and we'll pay for it and have council back it up. Now, maybe, well, you know, that's my opinion. That's my perception and I'm entitled to that. Usually there should be no evidence or no perception that the administration is usurping the authority of council. What should have happened here is if you really wanted to go, you should have paid for it directly, then came to us. And if we liked it, we would have said, fine, we will reimburse you for it. Instead, we did it the other way. Someone in the administration made a different decision.
Can I explain?
Councillor Good?
Yeah, I don't believe that's all. I think maybe they did a bit because this is done before. We've let other councillors go or mayors, deputy mayors to other conferences. And the same reason was that some of the councillors wasn't going, so it's an opportunity for John to bring back information, knowledge from what he learns at this conference. And that's the reason that I see why he should go. And I think that's likely what staff was looking at too.
Deputy Mayor?
By way of explanation, I was too lazy to go through the process myself. It looked fairly difficult. I didn't have the contact names. I knew that staff did already. So I simply asked, maybe Tara, could you do this for me now? It's filling up real fast. I'm perfectly willing to pay for it. And, I guess it has to go through council. That's what happened.
Does anybody want to go to the AMO conference in August? Apparently there's space. Because Councillor Fowler and I were at the county council meeting yesterday and we got offered, yes, I did. Do you want to go? And I was going to go and I backed out of it and I said no to that one as well. Okay, is there any other comments on this? All right, those in favor of allowing or granting granting Deputy Mayor Ingles the authority to go to the council and represent us, or the conference represent us? In favor? Opposed? I'm opposed. Okay, carried.
Thank you.
It carried. No. Yeah. John can go to the conference.
I won't charge for it.
Charge per diem, don't set another precedent. Jeez. Okay, so item B3, noise control policy issue.
So moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Hudel, be resolved that council receives for information an email dated July 7th, 2023 from John Sinek, Tyler Sinek, Ryan Sinek, and Sheldon Millerton, advising they will be hosting an event featuring live music acts on August 19th, 2023 on North Shore Road, and requesting exemption from the following sections of the zoning bylaw 6521. Section 3.3C prohibits the operation of any electronic device or group of connected electronic devices incorporating one or more loudspeakers or other electromechanical transducers and intended for the production, reproduction, or amplification of sound. The council approves the exemption to the noise bylaw to permit the event on August 19th, 2023, and the council instructs the clerk to provide a copy of this resolution to the requester and the township's bylaw enforcement officer.
Any comments? I would, sorry.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of event is this? Is this like a private event for the people that live there? Not that it matters, I'm just curious.
So this is on my road. It's it's just a private event and it's actually a hunt camp. So there's, those gentlemen all own the hunt camp and they invite their families and friends and kids and they invite the people on the road and they had it last year and it's a great event. And they usually shut it down by about 10:30.
Anyone else? I'd like the resolution to reflect the times that the applicant requested, like, so it's done by 11:30. Past your bedtime.
I said I'd like an invite.
Yeah. If you have to drive Marble Lake when you're road, you're done. So do you want to read just the first part of the resolution at that time in it? Or?
The bylaw allows these events to go till 12 o'clock, like that are restrictions from 12, so. Would it be more appropriate to put no later than 12 o'clock? Because they say they're done at 11:30, but I'm just not sure why we're making this more restrictive for them than what our bylaw allows.
The only reason I did that is because that's the time they requested.
Yeah,
I have no problem with 12 o'clock.
so you want me,
You started that whole thing, whole precedent thing. Okay,
so you just want me to read the change, the amendment? Okay, and that council approves the exemption to the noise bylaw to permit the event on August 19th with the event ending no later than 12 o'clock PM.
12 AM.
AM. Oh, dear. Okay.
In favor? Carried. River Hill Farm and Fine Food, donation of 2-seater picnic tables.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer, be it resolved the council receives the email dated July 13th, 2023 from River Hill Farm and Fine Food Limited, wanting to donate 2 new cedar picnic tables for the Claremont Hall. And the council graciously accepts the donation of the 2 picnic tables to be placed at the Claremont Hall. And the council instructs the manager of community development to contact River Hill Farm and Fine Foods Limited to advise them on council's decision and thank them for the donation.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Township of Selwyn requests for support short-term rentals. Do you have to read all of this? You do? Okay, sorry. I was just trying to save your voice.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, second by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives a request for support from the Township of Selwyn requesting the province move forward as soon as possible to legislate that all third-party short-term rental brokerage companies, be, for example, Airbnb and VRBO, be required to have all rental listings registered, including paying an appropriate annual fee and being responsible for the listings and ensuring compliance. And that the STR brokerage company provide this registry along with collected fees to the municipality in which the short-term rental properties are located, which allows the municipality to be aware of all registered short-term rental properties and to have access to funds for municipal expenses to enforce and respond to issues at an STR property, and that the province requires the short-term rental brokerage companies to delist, remove properties from the company's listings so that the property cannot be rented where a municipality has identified and verified life, health, and or nuisance infractions, including noise, fire safety, septic, etc. And that the council of the Township of North Frontenac supports the Township of Selwyn and encourages the province to regulate short-term rentals to assist with consistency across the province and reduce confusion and frustration for consumers and residents with respect to short-term rentals, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Township of Selwyn, Minister of Municipal Affairs, John Jordan, MPP, and Scott Reed, MP.
Any discussion, comments? Counselor Hermer, then Counselor Fowler.
I think that's a good step to be taken.
I do too. Counselor Fowler.
My concern is how are you gonna enforce it once it happens? Have to be somebody.
Promise. I think we need consistency. Everybody's got an opinion or an approach, or it doesn't work, it does work. And then you end up in court and you're this big and you're fighting these conglomerates, so. That's why I asked to have it moved from point, communications A after communications B. Counselor Good, then Counselor Region.
Yeah, I think I read that Hamilton and Toronto and those places are already charging for a surcharge on short-term rentals through these agencies that's advertising them. So it's, I think it's already going on. And I think it's a good idea.
Counselor Region.
Do we have one definition for short-term rental? Or could the, like, sorry, this might, I'm not 100% sure, which is why I'm asking. Apologize if this question doesn't make any sense, but like, does this include like a bunkie in somebody's driveway?
Deputy Mayor.
We tried in our report a year ago to define STRs. And there were all kinds of conditions and it gets really hairy. But it is possible to define an STR and pinpoint those guys that are causing problems, but it takes a lot of definition.
Counselor Region, you seem like you have another question.
Well, no, it's just that unless we have something that defines what an STR is. Like, I'm not necessarily suggesting this isn't a good thing, but unless we have something that defines what it is and what it isn't. This is gonna be very difficult.
We do recognize it's going to be difficult, and that's why we're not going ahead really quickly with the bylaw.
And that's why this asked the province to take the lead. And they've been, they haven't done anything with this. And probably rightly so, it's a quagmire for anybody that gets into it, unless you're really big. We have, our strategic planning RFP is currently being evaluated. So we'll be going into strategic planning session, late summer, early fall, and we'll see what comes out of it. Okay. So any final comments? We'll go to a vote. In favor of this motion, resolution? Carried. Sorry, Counselor Fowler, were you opposed? Okay, fine. I didn't see your hand, so I just thought I'd ask. So we have item 9A, road closure. Nicole?
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Hudel. Be it resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Road Allowance Closure for Approval in Principle, McNichol. And the council approves the application to close, stop up and sell the 66-foot road allowance between concessions 9 and 10 in Lot 8 Geographic Township of Palmerston, as noted on the sketch submitted with the application to the applicant in accordance with the road closing policy. And that the clerk circulate Olmsted, the adjacent property owner, and to Fenwick and Johnson to ensure there are no concerns with access to their properties. And the council waives the requirement to offer 33 feet to the adjacent property owner of the proposed concession road allowance due to the irregular shaping requested to be purchased.
Anybody have any comments on this? I do. The resolution asks us to approve the request. And then it says, go out and get comments from the adjacent neighbors. So if we approve it, no matter what the adjacent neighbors say, it's a done deal. So we've got the cart before the horse. So Tara, you'd like to speak to this, please?
So I missed adding in that second paragraph, approves in principle the application. So any road allowance closure is a two-step approval. So first you have to get approval in principle from council, because if you're not interested in selling it at all, there's no point in doing any public notice. And then the second step of that is doing the public notice, which I require a survey to do public notice with. So that's why we have the approval principle first. So it is missing council approves in principle the application, and then we'll move to the second step of notice.
Thank you. Counselor Good.
Yes, I went out and looked at this road allowance and I talked to the McNichol, the people that was applying for it. And the road allowance ends right up at you can see where the T is on there. The road allowance goes up to the top of the screen, Homestead property. And that's the end of it there. So we're not landlocking anybody on this. That's one thing always one of my concerns is on these, that we don't. So I looked at it and I don't see any reason why we can't sell it in principle anyway.
Did they give you any reason why they want to do this?
Yes, there's a building, you can't see on this here, but there's a building right close actually very close to the parcel of land. And they just want to be able to level that down a little bit because it's a bit of a knob there to make room for parking, plane, whatever.
So this is actually just north of where the Gully Road
Yeah,
cuts off?
yeah. You just go in the driveway and the circular driveway goes up around by the garage. And it's the property right to the left of the garage.
That wouldn't be cheap, never mind, I don't want to do that. Okay. Any other comments? In favor? Carry. Item B, 4 shore road allowance applications for approval in principle.
Moved by Counselor Hudel, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved, the council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Applications for Approval in Principle. Williams, Eustace, Jackson, Strubach, and Indigate Engineering Corporation. And the council approves in principle the applications to close, stop up and sell the shore road allowances as described below. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to part of lot 10, concession 9, geographic township of Miller, Big Lake. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to part of lot 34, concession 14, geographic township of Clarendon, Sand Lake. Part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to lot 1, plan 1944, geographic township of South Canonto, Palmerston Lake. And part of the shore road allowance lying adjacent to part of lot 10, northeasterly range, geographic township of Miller, Shaw Lake.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Item C, shore road allowance closure and sale bylaw, Jennings, Wellens, and Oswego.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, second by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the clerk planning manager's administrative report entitled Shore Road Allowance Closure and Sale Bylaw, Jennings, Williams, and Kashuka, and that as required by bylaw 2023, all that part of the shore road allowance in front of lot 17, concession 5, geographic township of Miller being part 2 on register plan 13R 22868, Wensley, Bruley Lake. All that part of the shore road allowance in front of lot 15, concession 5, geographic township of Miller being part 1 in register plan 13R 22868, Wensley, Bruley Lake. And all that part of the shoreline road allowance lying in front of lot 16, concession 2, geographic township of Berry being part 2 on registered plan 13R 22850, Big O Lake be declared as surplus and sold to the adjoining owner. Appraisal of the properties are not necessary as these are shore road allowances, and the council will consider a bylaw later in the meeting to stop up, close, and sell a portion of the shore road allowance.
Any comments? Those are good. In favor? Carried. Okay, item D, summary of proposed changes for the national heritage policies of the provincial planning statement.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, second by Counselor Hermer. Be resolved that council receives for information the administrative report entitled Summary of Proposed Changes to the Natural Heritage Policies of the Provincial Policy Statement, Provincial Planning Statement. And the council directs the clerk to submit comments about the proposed changes as outlined in Appendix A of this report to the province through the Environmental Registry of Ontario.
Comments? In favor? Carried. E, Manager Community Development Scenic Route and Historic Loop Signage Sponsorship Program.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Manager Community Development's administrative report entitled Scenic Route and Historic Loop Signage Sponsorship, and that council approves in principle the creation of a Scenic Route Historic Loop Signage Sponsorship Program. That council approves the MCD entering into Scenic Route Historic Loop Sponsorship Program agreements with local businesses and or community organizations upon amendment of Schedule A of bylaw 3623 fees and charges to include the sign sponsorship program fees at $120 per stop sign. And that council instructs the clerk to schedule a public meeting to amend the fees and charges bylaw at an upcoming meeting.
Comments? Deputy Mayor.
Brooke, is this something you can manage in your time? Like you're soliciting sponsorships. It's a new task.
Yes, so with our in-house economic development officer, it is something that he would complete and there is sufficient time to complete this.
Any other comments? Councilor Good.
Yes, to Brooke, Have you done this, like, are you looking for old schoolhouses and all that kind of historic sites?
That's correct. So the loop has been created as of now. We're just, this request is to ask, businesses for money to install these signs. But the loops that are created currently can add new stops. So if you see something that's not there and you'd like it on the historic loop, we're constantly evolving and adding or removing certain sites as well.
Back, I don't know what year it was, but quite a few years ago, I took pictures of this sort of thing out in Manitoba where houses out there. A lot of corners now, there's plaques up saying this is the site of such and such school, store, or different things all on there. The reason I ask is at that time there, we talked about doing this and it didn't go any further. I don't know, but hopefully this does, because on the, just over from the Myers Cave Road, there's a old school location there as well. Different ones all through.
Any other comments? So I have a question. Sorry. How are you going to, like, not time wise, but how are you going to manage this logistically? So you get a sign and you've got a business that wants to support that particular area. Business two comes along down the road 2 years and says, well, I want on the sign. What right has that company got to be on the sign and I don't? And it will happen. And that's my biggest issue here. And the second part of the question is, will we have as a township control over what these signs will look like? I mean, give us a couple examples and they seem to be reasonable, but.
So I'll answer your second question first. So we design the signs, we will add the sponsors on it. So we have full control over how they're printed. This will all be predetermined prior to signs being printed. Your first question, we've looked at, so say there's a stop, Marble Lake, and there's one of the lodges and one of the campgrounds and they both want it. So we want to put them both on it. So we can do that. They can split the cost. Now, as far as a business coming in after the fact and wanted to be adding, the signs will already be printed. So that would be.
They have to wait.
They would, yeah, they'd pretty much have to wait until there was, we needed a new sign, then maybe they could sponsor that sign. But once the signs are printed and installed, it's really whatever sponsor was on that is who would remain on that.
My only concern with this is that this may create a lot more work for you and your team than you think it might. I may be wrong, but it's just my opinion. Anyway, anybody else have any other comments? So let's do the vote. Stephanie?
Yeah, sorry, Brooke. So how will people know about this? How is this getting shared around so people can participate? So our plan is so we'll notify or have a spot in mind and we would select appropriate maybe association. So if it's the Palmerston Boat Launch, what would be the appropriate? Maybe it would be FOCUM or maybe it would be the Palmerston Cottage Association. So it'll be township kind of decided who would be appropriate sponsors. And then we would contact them from there.
Let's have a show of hands. Who's in favor of this motion? Anybody opposed? It's carried. Public Internet Support Program.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Manager of Community Development's administrative report entitled Public Internet Support Hours. And the council approves discontinuing the Public Internet Support Program at the Plevna and Cloyne Libraries effective September 1st, 2023. The council directs the Manager of Community Development to contact the Kingston Frontenac Public Library to offer the donation of the 4 computers, 2 at each library, for continued use by residents, visitors during library hours.
Any comments? Deputy Mayor.
It's interesting how this comes just a couple of months or whatever after support was given to the AMPA public internet site. So there's a difference in usage or interest or something.
Brooke, do you want to answer that?
I think what you were referring to is the internet installation at the Opera Hall.
I thought that they had run out of money to pay for connection of the computer in their library. And the township is now paying for that connection.
So yeah, so the Appa library had internet that the hall and our fire hall also used, and they were paying for it. We had paid, I believe it was 50% of the bill. The internet was not of good quality, and the township was using it. So the township, just as we did with some other halls, just installed our own internet. We pay now for the library, for the hall, for the fire hall, which is the same, yeah.
Councillor Regent.
So Brooke, just to clarify, does that mean, the comment in here about people sort of sit out in front of the Berry Hall and use the Wi-Fi, that's absolutely true. That's exactly what they're doing. So are we leaving the Wi-Fi there and we're just getting rid of the other pieces of the puzzle? Is that the idea?
That's right. So the piece of the puzzle that we're removing is the students who sit in the library for people to come in and use the computer, because the usage is now people just go in the parking lot and use their own devices, which will still be the same thing. It's still access that they can have, just not inside the building. And then they can still also go in and access the same computers during open library hours, just not through this program, the additional hours.
So Brooke, these computers will stay in use at the libraries depending on how somebody wants to use it, but I understand they're like 12 or 14 years old, so they're well past their best before date. So when they give up the ghost, they're done. We're not going to replace them. Is that what we're looking at here?
That's correct. So my recommendation is to donate them to the library. They've been doing all the current maintenance on the computer, so they will continue what they do. They'll now be their inventory, and if they crash, then they can decide if they're going to replace them or just remove them.
Any other comments? In favor? Carried. Blue box transition.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be resolved that council receives for information the Public Works Manager's administrative report entitled Blue Box Transition Update. And the council approves the Public Works Manager to initiate negotiations with the Producer Responsibility Organization Pro for an agreement addressing the Blue Box recycling services during the transition period and post-transition. The council approves the Public Works Manager to consult with Cambium to assist with forecasting and provide details for the negotiations, and that the Public Works Manager will report the status of the negotiations and provide a recommendation regarding an agreement with the Pro to council for consideration at a future meeting.
Comments? Questions? Deputy Mayor.
Darwin, could you help me understand this a bit? Is it the case that the Blue Box program now pays some or all of the cost for us to handle the 4 streams of recycling, including buying bins, including transporting the stuff? Is that what the Blue Box program has done?
It has. We've received subsidy depending on our data call submission where we on an annual basis summarize the tons we've handled and the materials handled. So we receive subsidy on that basis. That subsidy is going to end, and the producers are going to be responsible to deliver the Blue Box program. So
And that subsidy has not covered all the costs in the past?
it hasn't covered all of our costs. I think it's covered about 50% maybe. Our costs are high on Blue Box. I guess we have a high level of service and we pay for it. You know, with the number of sites we have open and the transfer stations. So what this will do, this will make the producers responsible for it. And I guess our options range from not participating at all, leave it to the organization delivering it, and they're responsible, through to negotiating with them, reach an agreement, and get all or a portion of our costs covered. We would be compensated by this organization. So we've transitioned tires, electronics, and hazardous products up to now, and it's went fairly well. We have agreements with the organizations managing those, and we continue to provide that service at our sites. The Blue Box it's a big program. It's significant. So it transitions between now and 2025. Some municipalities, the first round of municipalities just transition this year, 2023. And we had some choice in whether we do 2023, 2024, 2025. Decided we'd let the others kind of work it out over the first few years, and there have been issues with the agreements they're entering. And a lot of discussions and a lot of versions of these agreements, so. That's kind of where we stand. We're really just getting started for the most part, and it's gonna be quite an exercise between now and 2025 to both analyzing it, bringing it to council and deciding what level of involvement we want. And what, agreement are we able to reach with the producer organization?
It just seems to me there's a real potential for a bit of a disaster financially here to happen, because it sounds from what you're saying that this PRO, the Producer Responsibility Organization, is going to be non-governmental, a private organization that we will have to negotiate with, and we could end up, I mean, we're a very small player in this whole process. We could end up getting basically screwed.
Well, I guess that's the point in what I'm proposing here and involving Cambium. We do that analysis, we have those negotiations, and when we're done, you may decide, we don't want any part of this. You just go ahead, you provide the Blue Box program based on your obligations, and we don't want to play.
Blue Box program will continue even with producer responsibility?
It will continue, but for the during the transition period, they have to maintain the same level of service. From 2026 on, they're permitted to optimize the operation. So I just have my own thoughts on what that might involve.
I'm getting lost in all this, okay?
Okay,
So right now, we have three main streams, four, yes.
or
And we sell that, or we get compensated from a larger organization or a central organization for whatever we handle.
we get compensated for a portion of our costs.
Okay,
What's wrong with the process right now is when the recycling program started, we got paid as well for the recyclables. Now we pay by the ton. Now we pay by the ton for the, like cardboard right now is zero. But the others, we pay about $100 a ton for them to take our recyclables.
Negative cost.
So
okay.
that's what will end with it. They will be responsible for these recyclables, and we can negotiate and determine the level of involvement we want. If we weren't operating these sites, I think we don't want to be involved, but we have the landfills, we still operate those and we staff them. We have the other recycling programs that we staff. We have the transfer stations that we staff. So we have sites open and we're managing them, and we have people there. I think the key will be to identify what costs are related to the Blue Box program, and can we receive a reasonable amount of compensation for that. We have we have the bins, we have the truck, we have all of that infrastructure. We just have to decide what level of involvement we want.
Okay, so my last question then with someone else is to have a say, is if we elect not to participate, just if, and we end up running our own program, so we would still collect cans, plastics, cardboard, all that stuff, how would we dispose of it? Or do you have to, or are we going to be required to go through the central organization?
I
Which
don't
to me
think
seems like there's a lot of unknowns in there.
a lot of unknowns, and I've only identified a dozen questions here and aspects and implications for us. I don't see us continuing with our own program and looking for a market for it. I think we're either in and involved with the organization, or they're delivering it, and they're managing the materials, and they're managing where they go and what they do with them.
Or we're filling up our landfills faster.
Yeah,
All right, anybody else? Work in progress.
I would just ask that you don't retire until this is complete.
Yes.
I've told the waste recycling, the lead hand that as well, but so this is, I guess the one reason for this admin report, because we've dealt with the other programs, but is just to get this process started and make council aware of how significant it is and the implications and the, what we'll be going through for the next year 2 years to refine the program process and what services we're providing.
Counselor Good?
I just wanted to say, I think it's a smart idea to wait and let some of the bugs get worked out from these other municipalities and jump right into 2023. Good.
I agree. Okay, anybody else? In favor of receiving the report? Carried. Thank you, Darwin.
Thank you.
The community refrigerator for the Yonpa Hall.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the manager of community development's administrative report entitled Ampa Hall Community Fridge. And the council approves the placement of one of the 2 fridges from the hall kitchen to be the community fridge in the foyer at the Ampa Hall. And that Katie Warden, president of the Ampa Community Center Association, will complete the public health application and enter into an agreement with the township for the Ampa Community Center Association to hold the township harmless and provide evidence of their insurance and work with the manager of community development to ensure all public health guidelines are followed.
Comments? Counselor Good.
I think this is a pretty a good thing for them to do there, but I think it's a pretty big step for them as well, trying to control it.
I just wonder if there's an easier way to do it, because when you have all the restrictions added from the local health board and so on, and the vegetables have to be fresh, someone's got to stock the fridge and whatever, would it not be a little more easier just to leave the refrigerator where it is, have the producers come in on maybe 2 days a week, put the stuff in the refrigerator, and have the people who want this come in and get it the same day or the next day? That's just, it just seems like it's a lot of work for volunteers. Counselor Good.
Yeah, from what I read on this, it's not, the liabilities is too high for to do that.
I think one of the issues is that where the fridge is now is in a locked space. It's normally locked, so they want to put the fridge out in the foyer where it's not locked. I was at their annual meeting last weekend. They've thought through this whole process pretty carefully. And they certainly know the work involved and they feel there's a need. So I'm totally supportive of it, the way it's written.
They're the ones that want to deliver it, so. In favor of this resolution? It's carried. Emergency response plan annual compliance report.
Moved by Counselor Hermer, seconded by Counselor Fowler. Be it resolved that council receives for information the Director of Emergency Services Fire Chief's Administrative Report entitled Emergency Response Plan Annual Compliance Report 2022.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. External committees, Committee of Adjustment, Planning and Advisory Committee.
Moved by Counselor Fowler, seconded by Counselor Hermer. Be it resolved that council receives for information the minutes of a meeting of the Committee of Adjustment Planning Advisory Committee dated May 29th, 2023.
Comments? In favor? Carried. Anyone wish to give notice of a motion? Seeing none. Council portfolio verbal reports. So, as the mayor, reporting to you from what happened at the county meeting yesterday. It was a short meeting, but it covered a lot of issues. The first was the proclamation of the open farm days for the county, which we talked about earlier. Fairmont Home, the long-term care facility, received the CARP accreditation, which stands for the Commission on Accrediting of Rehabilitation Facilities. They did really well under the accreditation, which means they get financing for another 3 years. The county has appointed an integrity commissioner. The firm is Cunningham Swan, Carty, Little and Bonham, and Tony Fleming is the primary lead on that. We asked about potential for conflict of interest, and they have a process should that show up. The one item that I found really interesting was the we talked about truth and reconciliation, our relationship with the Indigenous folks and so on and whatever. And we come up with this land acknowledgement. I'm going to read it to you. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the first peoples and their ancestors who are entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. Now it just wasn't the county, the townships were involved and so on, but this is what the county has adopted as an initial draft they're going to use. We'll see what happens. Some people wanted it shorter, some people wanted it longer. What did it take me 15 or 20 seconds to read it? I think it's reasonable. So anyway, they've done that. The county also adopted their strategic plan. The Ardoch Lake Association, the Ardoch Lake condominium, where they asked for an extension of time, and the county has approved that. And that's pretty much it. So I am meeting with the North Frontenac Lake Association Alliance sometime in August. And I am meeting with Sunday Lake Lake Association on Sunday. And I met with the Cashawacamac Lake along with Councillor Good a few weeks ago on a Saturday morning in Northbrook at the Lions Club. So Wayne, Councillor Good. Councillor Regent.
Lakelands hasn't met again. We will typically meet again in September. The Lake Association meeting for Big Gull is August 6th at 10. And
That's the West End.
yes. Wayne and I have been invited, as have you, Mr. Mayor. Yes. Yes, you
I don't
are.
think I have been.
You're officially being invited right now, as per the president's request at this council meeting.
You'll send
Yes.
Wayne and I the information, will you?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Hoodle.
I have nothing to update. Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority had their meeting last week, but I was not able to attend.
Councillor Hermer.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councillor Fowler.
Yes, there's no meetings for the SALT committee or presentations until September. The EOTA isn't active until September as well. This Saturday, July 22nd, I'll be going to the Palmerston Lake Association AGM at 10 o'clock.
Councillor Ingles.
Fred and I are splitting responsibilities. I'm going to Conondo Lakes Association on Sunday. Because on Saturday, I have the Summerfest issue.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Long minutes here. Introduction and reading of bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Hermer, seconded by Councillor Fowler, be resolved that leave be given to the mover to introduce the following bylaw that has been circulated to all members of council. Bylaw 4723, road closing, Wilms, Jennings, and again Kashuka, and that this bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Confirmatory bylaw 4823.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer, be it resolved that bylaw 4823, being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of council for its regular meeting held July 20th, 2023, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, second by Councillor Hermer, be it resolved that council adjourns the meeting at 6:39 PM until August 17th, 2023, or at the call of the chair.
Comments? In favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.